You don't have to be a total watch nerd to know that Rolex is a popular brand. You don't even have to have a passing interest in watches to know that Rolex is a popular brand. There are some people, however, who you really wouldn't expect to be wearing one. Here are 3 of them. Watchfinder, the pre-owned watch specialist. Now available in France, Germany, Switzerland, USA, and Hong Kong. Now, you definitely have to be a watch nerd to know who Philippe Dufour is. If you're one of those people, then you'll understand that he's an international treasure. Watchmaking these days has become hugely conflated as a term, blending business, procedure, skill, and service all into one. But Philippe Dufour takes it all back to its roots. When someone says that something is their life, that's usually a bit of an exaggeration. Seeing Radiohead live a couple of times and owning all the albums except Pablo Honey doesn't make Radiohead life. For Philippe Dufour, however, watchmaking really is his life. I mean, he decided he wanted to be a watchmaker when he was 14 and has been practicing ever since. He's now in his 70s, so yeah, that's really a lifetime. But if you're thinking that he's just some old boy cobbling together some bits he bought on eBay, I'll stop you right there. After honing his skills at Jaeger-LeCoultre and Audemars Piguet, Dufour set about making his own watch. And he started with a Grand Sonnerie, probably the most complex mechanism found in a watch. Each one took 2,000 hours to make. He's an expert in mechanical complication, but he's also an expert in perfect simplicity. In fact, one of the models he produces is called the Simplicity. To the unfocused eye, it appears to be exactly that, a simple, 3-handed watch with no standout features. But it is, in fact, a masterclass in refinement. Every hand-polished angle, every hand-striped bridge is beyond perfection. So exquisite are his works that if you want one, it's kind of tough. His order books are full, and as you can imagine, a watch made to that caliber by one man takes a long while to make. Even if you considered buying one used, it's such a personal treasure to each owner that, currently, you'll only find one for sale. So rare and special are they that Dufour can't even afford to have one for himself. Instead, and here's the surprising part, he settles for a Rolex, a ceramic-bezeled GMT-Master II, no less. So we can keep on making great watch videos. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed to the channel. If you already are, it really does help. Thank you. If you're a fan of racing and you're a fan of Steve McQueen, then you'll be well aware of the 1971 film Le Mans. Okay, so the film itself may not be the best, but as a piece of iconography, it can't be beat. That picture of Steve McQueen as Michael Delaney, a racing driver for Porsche in that fearsome and grueling 24-hour race, buttoning up that famous Gulf-liveried Hoyer-branded racing suit, big square Hoyer Monaco on his wrist, is the stuff of legend. Even the events leading up to how that image even came to be are legendary. Hoyer, the watch company, led by CEO Jack Hoyer, was no newbie to motorsport. Racing was in its blood, the company finding fame with its dash timers and racing stopwatches in the early part of the 20th century. Jack Hoyer himself was a common fixture in the racing paddock, supporting close friend and racing driver Joe Siffert in his F1 and Le Mans campaigns. In fact, Hoyer was the first non-motorsport sponsor in F1, the brand shield decorating Siffert's racing suit just as it was in the film Le Mans. Coincidence? Definitely not. What you have to understand was that being a racing driver back then, or any famous athlete for that matter, was not a high-paying gig like it is today. To make ends meet, Siffert helped Hoyer sell watches to the other drivers, hawking them whenever he was out of the cockpit. So, when prop master Don Nunnally was looking for the ideal get-up for Steve McQueen's character in Le Mans, The eye-catching stripes of Joe Siffert's own Le Mans racing suit was an easy choice. And with the suit came the watch. Ever the salesman, Siffert's consultation on the film included the push of his watch sponsor as well, and 4 different watches were requested to be brought on set to be inspected. The bold, square case of the Monaco was the second easy choice made by Nunley. And so these choices became legend, and that iconic pose took the Heuer Monaco to a level even Jack Heuer could have never expected. But that's on set. In the real world, you would think that McQueen would still wear the watch he made so famous, and he is rumoured to have permanently borrowed one of the watches used in the film. But no. It's to the tried and true Rolex Submariner that he turned to in his personal life instead. Remember how Omega had a Speedmaster worn on the moon? I know I sometimes give the company a bit of stick for mentioning it from time to time, read all the time, but it's a hell of an achievement. I can only imagine what it must be like to be so good at making something that NASA chooses it above all the other somethings, and Omega is one of those few select companies, alongside, of all things, Playtex, that doesn't have to imagine. I mean, the Speedmaster was already a proven entity, personally picked by astronaut Wally Schirra to wear on board Sigma 7 for the 1962 Mercury Atlas 8 program. Schirra spent 6 orbits and 9 hours testing not just flight systems, but also himself, studying the effects of prolonged exposure to microgravity on the human body. The watch and the astronaut performed flawlessly. But this head start made it no easier a task to becoming NASA's official watch for all manned missions. The Speedmaster still had to survive many grueling tests, including 48 hours at 71 degrees Celsius, followed by another half hour at 93, and then 4 hours at -18. That's 160, 200 and 0 degrees Fahrenheit, in case you are wondering. And then an hour at high pressure, 2 hours at low, 6 shocks at 40 Gs, followed by half an hour vibrating at 8.8 Gs, and even having 130 decibels of noise, from a low rumble to a high-pitched squeal, fired at it. If there had been a human on the other end of that watch during those tests, they'd be dead. With a few tweaks, mainly to improve the high-contrast legibility, the Speedmaster was ready, and boy did it live up to and exceed expectations. Not only was it worn to great success on the surface of the moon by Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong's also replaced the faulty lunar module's mission clock, which is why he didn't wear his on the surface. And, of course, Omega received the prestigious Silver Snoopy Award for the Speedmaster's role in timing the critical burn that brought the Apollo 13 crew safely back home. Apollo 14, however, was a bit different, because it turns out that astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who had just completed his second moonwalk to total over 9 hours on the lunar surface, wasn't just wearing his Speedmaster. Tucked under the cuff of his spacesuit was his own personal watch, a Rolex GMT-Master, making it, unofficially, a moonwatch. And Mitchell wasn't the only astronaut who put his faith in Rolex's pilot's watch. Alan Shepard, Jack Swigert, Stuart Rooser, Ron Evans, and Leroy Chow are but a few others who also chose it. Even though it's predictable to see Rolex everywhere, there are still a few places left where it isn't. And yet the brand still manages to pop up, even when it's least expected. It's no wonder that what was once a plucky young watch company at the start of the last century has become the giant it is today, and even continues to surprise us with its seemingly unstoppable appeal. It's not all hype, after all. Discover more exceptional watches at Watchfinder. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If there are any watches you'd like to see featured, please let us know in the comments below.